king is always lonely. When others are laughing with friends to show off their humor, he is sweating in silence. The king is always lonely. When others are chasing fair maidens, he is bleeding on the battlefield. A king is always lonely. When the whole world is against him, he stared into the front. A king is always lonely. When he is abandoned by all, he is still firmly marching forward, only to realize his dreams afar. I just want to say, dollar, please accept my allegiance. A loner like me wishes to follow you who are lonely too. You win, I will be with you. You lose, I will be with you. Fang Minquin finished the article and did not leave his own name under. Instead, he wrote from a loner to the king. When Fang Minquin uploaded the article on the Skynet, it went viral at an incredible speed, triggering a huge response. Damn, I cried reading this. It reminded me of when I trained hard to be admitted to a military school. Others admired me for being admitted, while they had no idea about the effort I made. I had to train even when I had a fever. It was tough. Fang Minquin wrote well. I was reminded of the days I struggled in God's sanctuary. This is simply my true portrayal. I am also a loner, spending at least 28 days in God's sanctuary each month. I just want to work harder so that my family can live better. But I am so tired and I need company, no matter what happens in the future. From this moment on, I am a fan of Dollar and Fang Minquins. If God gave me another chance, I would never have said anything bad about Dollar. +1, +10,086. Dollar, you are my king. A king marches in loneliness had made Dollar and Fang a tremendous success. As Fang became a real celebrity, Dollar had gained many hardcore fans who would not sway easily. Reading the piece himself, Han Sen felt touched, too. During the first 3 months when he had just entered God's sanctuary, the loneliness and helplessness he experienced were maddening. He had gone this far because of his dreams and the people he cared about. If it weren't for his mother and Han Yan, Han Sen might have given up on himself. Han Sen wanted to reply to the article, but he eventually let that thought go. Let us keep marching forward for what we truly cherish. No words could express my feeling. Han Sen silently logged out. Han Sen rested for a while, and decided to check if there was any hyper-geno art on footwork that suited him in St. Hall. Yi Dongwu's footwork was paired perfectly with his sneak attacks, and the footwork was what Han Sen lacked. If he could practice some footwork to work with his sleeve-blade skills, he could reach an even higher level in the combat. In the afternoon, Fang Jinky suddenly sent him a message to ask him to meet about something important. Han Sen went to Fang Jinky's villa and found out that Fang was asking him to join Fist Guy's team to hunt a sacred blood creature. Fist Guy could not deal with the creature with his own men, but he did not want to team up with Son of Heaven or Qin Xuan. He did find the weakness of the creature and have a plan that calls for a good assassin. He did not know someone like this, but he did not want to share the meat of the creature with the other gangs either. I know you are also in Steel Armor Shelter, so I've recommended you to him. If you join them, you won't get a share of the meat but will be paid with a mutant three-eyed beast mount. As for the beast soul of the sacred blood creature, we will follow the tradition. Whoever gets it could keep it. Fang Jinky paused and said, the pay is very good. If Fist Guy does not insist on having the meat to himself, the share you get could not possibly be of the same value as a mutant beast soul mount. Han Sen promised he would join Fist Guy. He had always wanted a mount and here came his opportunity to get a mutant one. Plus, he had a chance at the sacred blood beast soul as well. So why not? Fang Jinky gave Han Sen a coin and said with a smile, I only said that I would recommend someone good, but didn't name you. Take this to the agreed place and he will know. Han Sen nodded and took the coin. Fang Jinky took him to dinner before letting him go. Han Sen came to the agreed place and saw Fist Guy and his gang under a tree enjoying the cool, obviously waiting for someone. Ass freak, what are you doing here instead of following Qin Xuan around? A gang member saw Han Sen and ridiculed. Han Sen did not speak, but fished out the coin from his pocket and flicked it with his finger. The coin drew an arc and fell in the palm of Fist Guy. Holding the coin, Fist Guy looked at it and felt incredible. He asked Han Sen, you are the person Fang mentioned. No way, Fist Guy. This is the guy you told us about. Ass freak is the master your friend recommended. Brother, are you kidding us? Brother, are you playing with us? Fist Guy's men were talking at the same time as none of them believed Ass freak was the man. Fist Guy was also upset. Fang Jinky said he would send him a master of assassination, but he did not expect it to be Han Sen. Fist Guy knew Fang Jinky well and knew that he would never mess around. Since Fang had recommended Han Sen, he must have his own reason. Fist Guy regarded Han Sen and said, Fang said that you are skilled in assassination. Better than average, Han Sen said. Better than average. We are going to kill a sacred blood creature. Can you manage that? Littlefinger said with distrust and curled his lips. This gang was different from the Qin Xuan's gang and Son of Heaven's gang. It had no military background and Fist Guy did not pay for the gang members. Fist Gang was formed by a group of friends and Fist Guy was their leader. The members all referred to each other with nicknames. Thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and little finger, plus Fist Guy were the backbone of Fist Gang. All 6 were here today, which showed the importance they attached to this sacred blood creature. Fist Guy had almost maxed out on his sacred Geno points and all he needed was the meat from this one creature to get there. Not having a mount, Hansen was invited to sit together with Fist Guy on his mutant mount, which was as strong as a rhinoceros. The gang marched toward the southern mountains. Along the way, the gang had never stopped unless necessary. On the 3rd day, they finally stopped at a Grand Canyon. Hansen estimated that if it were not for the mounts, it would have taken them half a month to get here. They could no longer ride in the canyon, so Hansen followed the gang on foot. Along the side of the valley they walked down and saw a billowing river, which was still not their destination. Having walked for more than 2 hours, they finally saw a large cave on the side. It was dark inside and they lit torches before going in. Once they were in the cave, columns of stalactites caught their eyes. Be careful. Although we have cleared them up last time we came, the cave has a complex structure so there is no guarantee that we've got them all. Also there could be some new creatures hidden somewhere. Everyone pay attention, said Fist Guy solemnly. All answered aye and Thumb led the way holding a mutant beast soul shield in his hand. The rest followed him into the depths of the cave. Littlefinger was walking on the end with a pair of beast soul caudals in his hand, vigilantly looking around. Along the way Hansen saw a lot of old bloodstains, which must be left from when the gang was here last time. Obviously their worries were unnecessary as they had encountered no danger on the way. The gang must have done a good job last time as there was not even a primitive creature. Pay attention, guys. We are about to see it. Do not make a noise, whispered Fist Guy who was directly behind Thumb after they had walked for 4 or 5 hours. In fact, these words were meant for Hansen, as everyone else had been here before and knew that they were approaching the creature. They were tiptoeing like cats, making absolutely no sound. Hansen nodded to Fist Guy, who then signaled Thumb to keep going. In a short while, they were at the end of the path and the space suddenly became huge. A stone hall appeared in front their eyes. The stalactites hanging from the ceiling were about 30 feet long, which were not even 1/10 of the height of the cave. Unknown black vines were growing everywhere in the cave and the leaves on the vines were as black as ink. There were even black flowers dotted on the vines. Where they came from was like a tunnel that was connected to the hall's wall, and there were many entrances like this one. Fist Guy indicated silence to Hansen with his finger and then pointed underneath them. Hansen looked down and his eyes lit up. Hansen saw that at the bottom of the cave, a black pangolin-like creature more than 6 feet long with its whole body covered within crystal scales was drinking water from a pool. That is the creature. Its hearing is no good but it has got excellent eyesight. Even a sacred blood beast soul weapon could hardly hurt its scales. Its biggest weakness is its soft belly, explained Index Finger unhurriedly, who was a refined young man. Even if its stomach is its weakness, it is on all fours and I can't really flip it over and stab there, Hansen said. Of course not. As long as there is a sign of trouble, this guy will roll itself into a ball. And then it would be like a snail hidden inside the shell and its belly would be protected. Its scales could also flip up and become circular saw blades. When it rolls, it's like a spiked wheel and even the thickest armor would be cut open by that. And no one's body could stand that either. Littlefinger cut in. How is this a weakness then? Hansen could not help but frown. Certainly we cannot attack it head on. Its strength is formidable and its speed is too high. No one could afford taking a hit from it. Fist Guy hesitated before he pointed at the pool at the bottom and said, our plan is that in a while, we will go out to drive it away, and you can take the opportunity to hide underwater in the pool. When it goes to drink again, you make the attack from below the water at its soft chin. It would be great if you could leave the weapon in its chin so that it could no longer curl up. At that time we could kill it however we like. Fist Guy, no wonder you are willing to pay me a mutant mount. I'd be risking my life. Hansen said to Fist Guy. If it is easy, we will not pay such a big price. Can you do it or not? Littlefinger whispered. Everyone awaited Hansen's decision, looking at him. I can try, but since I am putting my life on the line here, I have to get paid first in case I die there. Hansen pondered and said, okay. Fist Guy agreed readily and transferred the mount to Hansen. Now that they were here already, as long as Hansen got into the water, they did not worry he would run away. So, it was fine to pay him first. Index finger took a small oxygen cylinder and respirator from his bag and gave them to Hansen, so that Hansen could stay in the water longer. After everything was ready, Fist Guy looked at Hansen and said, "We'll go out to lead it to one of the tunnels and you should quickly go hide underwater. You don't have much time, 30 seconds at best. Is that fine?" "No problem." Hansen checked the distance to the pool and then confirmed. "Well, although its bare skin is relatively vulnerable, you would still need at least a mutant beast soul weapon to pierce that. Do you have one?" Fist Guy was a bit concerned. Hansen nodded again. His Shura katana was comparable with a mutant weapon, but he was not dollar now, so he did not bring it along. But Hansen still had a mutant black stinger arrow and that would do. Everything was ready. Fist Guy and his gang members exchanged a look and everyone except for Littlefinger climbed away using the vines. They carefully climbed to other entrances to the hall, and then threw fist-sized iron balls at the drinking creature from each entrance. Dang, dang, dang. The balls hit the creature's black crystal scales and made noises of metal, not even leaving a white mark on the scales. But the sacred blood creature was obviously angered. In just a moment, it curled up its body and suddenly looked like a snail, a spiked one. The black scales were turning up and sharp as blades. The creature started rolling with a thudding and even the stone was cut deeply by its scales. It was fearsome indeed. In just an instant, it rolled several dozen feet. Not only its speed was incredible, it could also roll itself onto a steep stone wall. Like a spiked wheel, it rolled upward on the wall and was behind Fist Guy's men in an instant. They could not afford to relax and all hid in the respective tunnel next to themselves. The sacred blood creature followed Thumb into the tunnel closest to it. "Come on, Thumb can't hold very long." Littlefinger urged Hansen to go down. Hansen took a deep breath, grabbed the vines and quickly slid down to the bottom. He ran to the pool but did not jump in for fear of making too much noise. Instead, Hansen went to the water side, slowly slid himself into the water and sank. Seeing Hansen diving in the water with the respirator in his mouth, Littlefinger was relieved and wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. When he was about to check on the sacred blood creature, he saw a shadow rushing from the tunnel where it was enrolled to the bottom. Its eyes on the side of its body twirled for a while and detected no danger. It then slowly spread its body and crawled around to chew on the black vines. The reason why the creature had stayed here for a long time was to eat the black vines. Fist Guy's gang had discovered this and was thus certain that it would not leave before eating up the vines. The creature was still gnawing the vines when Fist Guy's gang returned from the back of the tunnel. It chanced that all the tunnels were connected and they made a detour and found Littlefinger. Thumb's arm was hurt. His blood was dripping and his bone was bared. "Thumb, you alright?" Fist Guy and others asked nervously. "I'm okay, but my mutant shield was ruined when used to block the creature. If we could not kill it, it would not be worth it at all," Thumb said distressed. "I wonder if Freak could finish the task." Littlefinger watched the quiet pool and the creature eating the vines with a worried look on his face. "I hope he can." Looking down, Fist Guy was not sure either. One could never be sure about the result when one was about to hunt a sacred blood creature. The infamy of Freak also added to their lack of confidence in Hansen. The gang watched the creature nervously, but it did not have any intention to drink. After chewing on the black vines for more than half an hour, it lay down on a stone and fell into sleep. Fist Guy and others started to get anxious, as the oxygen cylinder they gave Hansen was only the size of a palm and the oxygen was quite limited. When they were praying for the creature to get up, it eventually woke up and slowly climbed to the pool, as if their prayers had worked. It stretched its head above the pool and started to lap the water with its tongue. However, Fist Guy and the Finger brothers were not too happy about this, as where the creature stayed was far from where Hansen was hiding. If Hansen started to swim now, however, the waves he made would alarm the sacred blood creature for sure. What now? The gang members' hearts raced. Hansen could not even touch the creature in such distance, let alone kill it. Unfortunately, the water below was too dark, and they could not see what Hansen was doing under the water. Hearts in their mouths, the guys suddenly heard a screech from the bottom. The sacred blood creature lifted its head up and there was a black arrow deep in its white jaw, with only less than half the length exposed. Blood was flowing along the arrow shaft. Not able to find its enemy, the creature wanted to curl up after being injured. However, since its jaw had an arrow in it, it could not curl itself into a perfect ball. Instead, it looked like a jagged tire in an accident, bearing much of its white belly. Overjoyed, the gang summoned all kinds of weapons and rushed out. The sacred blood creature was still fierce though badly injured. When it rolled, stones were still crushed under its scales. No one could block it like no one could stand in the way of a bulldozer. The gang did not dare to fight it head-on and decided to carry on the fight while beating a retreat. Then they saw the creature rolling itself into a tunnel and ran away as fast as it could. Only then did Hansen appear from the pool holding Doomsday. The rest paid him no mind and rushed to the cave and chased after the creature. Hansen quickly followed them. The creature's injury did not affect its speed. It soon disappeared in the cave. Fortunately, it had shed a lot of blood, so the gang was able to follow it. There were toxins on the mutant black stinger arrow, and the creature would surely pressure the arrow deeper and deeper as it rolled. Hence its wound had not healed and blood could still be spotted from time to time. Having chased for more than 2 hours in the tunnels, they finally saw the light as they had come out of the cave and entered a forest of hoodoos. The ground was still stained with blood, so apparently the sacred blood creature had fled among the hoodoos. Damn, the vitality of this creature is just incredible. We would have died a long time ago had we shed so much blood. And it was running fast as ever, Thumb cursed. The terrain was rugged so they could not use their mounts. Everyone kept chasing on foot. As they were running, Hansen suddenly heard a voice in his mind. Sacred blood creature scaled armadillo killed. The beast soul of scaled armadillo gained. Eat its meat to gain 0 to 10 sacred geno points randomly. Hansen paused and could not believe the scaled armadillo had already died. What was more surprising was that he even gained its beast soul. Seeing Hansen suddenly stopped, the rest looked to him and asked, "What happened?" "The scaled armadillo is dead," replied Hansen. Scaled armadillo. The rest suddenly realized that scaled armadillo was the name of the sacred blood creature, and all became thrilled. "Your arrow is poisonous?" Fist Guy quickly asked. "Yes, but the toxicity does not seem to be strong enough to kill a sacred blood creature." Hansen had some doubts himself. The scaled armadillo must have rolled itself so hard that the arrow pierced its brain. Ringfinger guessed. "Yes, that is quite plausible. Let's hurry," Thumb said eagerly. The gang followed the blood stain and turned around a corner before they saw the dead scaled armadillo. However, they all paused. What they saw was different from what they had imagined. The scaled armadillo was dead indeed, but it did not seem to die because of Hansen's arrow. A gorgeous bird more than 9 feet tall with silver body and ruby eyes was using its silver hook-like claws to tear the scaled armadillo's body and peck at its flesh. The scales that even a sacred blood weapon could not break were torn apart like they were made of paper. Hansen now knew that it was indeed not his arrow, but this silver bird that had killed the scaled armadillo. For some reason, it was still counted as his doing. "T, another sacred blood creature with wings," Thumb screamed out loud. His voice turned all faces dark. The bird that was enjoying its meal suddenly cast its ruby-like eyes in their direction. The moment it spotted them, a murderous look appeared in its eyes and it spread its wings like clouds that blocked the sky and flew toward them. "Scatter," Fist Guy shouted, turned and bolted. This silver bird was so strong that they were by no means its match. Since even the scales of the scaled armadillo could not withstand its claws, they simply had nothing to fight it with. Hansen was also running as fast as his legs could carry him. The gang had scattered, but as Hansen looked back, he realized that the silver bird had chosen him to follow, its ferocious bird eyes red as blood gazing at him unblinkingly. "Maybe God envies my newly gained beast soul." Hansen secretly cursed and continued to run desperately. Fortunately, it was a forest of pagoda-like weathered rock hoodoos. Hansen was taking his cover behind the pagoda-like hoodoos and paid no mind which way he was going as long as he could get rid of the silver bird. However, the horrendous silver bird was still following him. Under its claws, even a car-sized stone was crushed in an instant. Its strength was almost divine. After running for a while, Hansen was suddenly in the open and out of the hoodoo forest. He complained inwardly, "Now without the hoodoos as my cover, how could I outrun this damned bird?" Without the cover of the hoodoos, the silver bird uttered a ferocious hoot and rushed toward him. Without hesitation, Hansen summoned the Bloody Slayer and Black Beetle and turned himself into a golden centaur, running with all 4 hooves. Hansen had always trusted the speed of the Bloody Slayer, but this time he failed to run away from the silver bird. Instead, the bird was catching up. "Am I going to die here?" Hansen complained inwardly. The shapeshifting time was limited and his current geno points would give him less than an hour. Once his time was up, how could he ever outrun the ferocious silver bird with his own feet? But now Hansen had no time to think. He had to focus on running as fast as he could. As for the purple-winged dragon beast soul, Hansen did not dare to summon it at all. Once he used wings to send himself in the air, his flying speed would be even lower and he would be turning himself into a meal for the bird. Looking at the endless plain, Hansen ran desperately while the silver bird was snapping at his heels. As time passed, Hansen started to feel a severe soreness and knew that his shapeshifting time was almost up. As Hansen was considering whether to turn around and fight the bird head-on, he heard a rumbling of water ahead of him. It seemed that there was a wide river there. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Without thinking any further, he ran at his full speed toward the sound and used Jadeskin fully so that he could shapeshift a bit longer. As Hansen thought his body was about to explode, he had finally made it to the river. With acute pain, he threw himself into the water. Thump! Hansen heard a loud noise behind him, and then felt a burst of pain on his back that almost made him black out. His heart froze, knowing the silver bird had followed him into the water. The desire to survive made him muster what was left of his energy and try to dive deep into the river. At this point, Hansen could no longer keep up shapeshifting, or else his body would break down. The moment he turned into himself, he felt he was pushed downstream at an incredible speed. He tried not to faint, as he could drown in such torrents before he was eaten by the bird. He summoned the mutant black barracuda, and a mutant mount more than 4 feet long appeared next to him. Holding tight on the mount, Hansen controlled it to dive to the bottom. When Hansen could no longer hold his breath, he sent the mutant black barracuda to the surface. Finally getting a little break, Hansen was glad to find the silver bird was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that it did not know how to swim and just clawed his back when he jumped into the water. His back was still in great pain, and his whole body felt like it was falling apart with spasms in his muscles. He felt like he was made into a plate of sashimi with his flesh being sliced off. The consequence of shapeshifting over time made Hansen helpless. Fortunately, he had his black beetle armor for protection, or else the creatures in the river that had sniffed the smell of blood would have torn him apart. Groups of strange fish more than 2 feet long hovered around him and tried to bite his body from time to time. With some physical strength recovered, Hansen started to observe the surroundings. With a long sigh of relief, Hansen climbed up into a tall tree's crown. When he was about to take a good rest and treat his wound, a beast roar rang in the mountain near him. How bad can my luck be? With a wry smile, Hansen vigilantly looked in the direction of the roar. Seeing it was actually several youths hunting a lion-like creature, Hansen felt God had not abandoned him yet. Taking all his beast souls back and putting the dagger back into his sleeve, Hansen slowly walked toward the youths and said after they killed the creature, "Friends, may I ask where this is?" The youths that were still thrilled over their kill were startled by Hansen's voice and turned to him with weapons in their hands. After seeing Hansen, who was in rags that were dripping blood, they were suddenly relieved. "Why are you here alone?" asked the young man in beast soul armor, looking at Hansen with some doubt. "I came with some friends and not sure it was good or bad luck. We ran into a flying sacred blood creature and scattered. I'm lucky to be alive." Hansen told half the truth. "A sacred blood creature? Where?" The youths were shocked. "I don't know now. I jumped into the river to escape from it and was carried here by the torrents. If you want to hunt it, you could go to the upstream and try your luck. I'm not sure if it would still be there though." Hansen paused and asked, "Could you tell me where I am first?" A girl with wide eyes said, "We are not sure either. But if you are heading to a shelter, go west and it will take you about a month to reach Glory Shelter." Hansen was a bit surprised. Glory Shelter was where Zhu Longyin and Lin Beifeng came from. It chanced that he was near Glory Shelter now. He wondered how far the river had carried him. It was fortunate that he did not encounter any great danger on the way. The young man who spoke first suddenly said, "You don't look like you are in good shape. It so happens that we are heading back, so if you are willing to pay, we could take you with us." Hansen smiled. "Does it look like I have money with me? We can sign a contract here and you could pay when we are back in the shelter," replied the young man. "How much do you want?" Hansen pondered and asked. He was not familiar with this area. If he followed them, at least he would not get lost. 100,000. The young man regarded the bow and arrows Hansen was carrying and said, "It looks like you are injured. We can give you some medicine and food, meat of primitive creatures." The rest of the youths were a bit shocked by this price, as 100,000 was not a small amount. "Okay, but I would have to pay after we reach the shelter," said Hansen, spreading his hands out. This trip was fruitful enough and it was most important that he could reach a shelter safe and sound. 100,000 was not much for him at this point. "Deal." The young man happily took out pen and paper to draft a simple contract. After Hansen signed, he gave Hansen some food and water. After some self-introduction, the girl with wide eyes helped treat Hansen's wound. Once she lifted his shirt up and saw the wound left by the silver bird, she almost let out a yelp of surprise. A foot-long wound spread across Hansen's back, with flesh ripped apart. The injury looked scary. However, he had great physique and jade skin. Hansen had got familiar with the youths after traveling with them for 2 days. They were not bad people. Because they were from humble families and had nothing special about them, they did not make it into some large gangs. Instead, they grouped up to hunt creatures themselves. They did not dare to poke any strong creature for lack of strength. This way, there was not much risk involved as they were always picking on primitive creatures that were alone. Their situation was much better than Han Sen when he had first entered God's sanctuary. At the foot of a mountain, they suddenly heard a screeching. Several of them looked up and saw some black figures rushing down from the mountain, terrified. "Run, it's black-tailed monkeys," shouted Zhu Xiangqian, the leader of the youths. Although the black-tailed monkeys were merely of the size of cats, as primitive creatures, they were rather swift and their claws were toxic, and it would be dangerous for one to be scratched by them. Seeing at least a dozen monkeys rushing down, the youths were all shocked. They might be able to cope with one or two of them, but once they were caught up by the dozen here, it would be hard for any of them to stay alive. Surrounded by mountains, it was almost impossible for them to outrun the monkeys who were used to climb. Suddenly, a trill of the string was followed by a scream of a monkey. The youths turned around and saw a black-tailed monkey was pierced by an arrow in the head and fell to the ground. And the archer was Han Sen on the side. "Han Sen, let's go. There are too many black-tailed monkeys here and we will be in trouble if surrounded by them," said Lai Xiaogu, the girl with wide eyes, hastily. Han Sen ignored her urging and drew the string of doomsday at the black-tailed monkeys sweeping across the slope, screaming. The youths thought Han Sen was out of his mind. How many of the monkeys could he possibly kill? Once he was besieged by them, one scratch would mean death. While they were still anxious, they heard the string sounded once again and it did not stop. A black shadow flashed and instantly shot through a black-tailed monkey's head. The next moment, the arrow went back to the hands of Han Sen and was driven through another monkey's head. There was no extra movement or any deviation. The bow and arrow were almost integrated into one, with a mysterious beauty. String, arrow, death, everything was so natural and smooth, as if this was the way it should be. Zhu Xiangqian and the other youths were stunned and stopped running. They could not believe the black-tailed monkeys' heads were penetrated just like this. More than half of the 20-some black-tailed monkeys were shot dead by Han Sen before they could make it to the foot of the mountain, and the few survivors screamed and fled back to the mountains. The youths were still frozen and looked Han Sen up and down as if they had seen a ghost. Suddenly, they heard a screech of anger from the mountains and soon saw a black-tailed monkey more than twice the size of the normal ones reaching the foot of the mountain in an instant like a whirl of wind. A mutant black-tailed monkey. Lai Xiaogu was shocked. Following her cry, an arrow flew across with a firm sound of string. Whoosh! The mutant black-tailed monkey was suddenly shot in the head, with its whole body carried away, and nailed on a tree behind it by an arrow. Lai Xiaogu and the rest were looking at the monkey nailed on the tree astonished. And when they looked to Han Sen in a few seconds, he had put the bow back on his back as if he just did something quite trivial. On the day of the ranking rounds of the contest, almost everyone was watching the matches, the match that they were most looking forward to being Dollar versus Lin Feng. But until the start of the match, Dollar was still nowhere to be seen. Because a total point system was used in the ranking rounds, every contestant must fight all 9 others. Whoever won the most matches would have higher ranking. So in the beginning, when it had not been Dollar's turn yet, the viewers were still hopeful that he might show up later. However, Dollar did not even show up at his own rounds and ended up losing by default. There was an uproar among the viewers, as they were very disappointed in Dollar's absence after waiting for such a long time. All kinds of speculations and gossips began trending. Some said Dollar was injured when hunting a sacred blood creature, and thus could not make it. Some said Dollar was an active duty soldier and was executing orders on the battlefield, so he could not participate in the contest. Of course, some said Dollar was afraid of Lin Feng, and did not dare to come. However, this argument was relatively unpopular. After all, Dollar's strength had been recognized by the vast majority in his fight against He Dongmu. With all kinds of speculations in the alliance, people first thought of Fang Mingquan and Contest Center and wished that Fang would have a satisfactory answer to why Dollar did not show up at the ranking rounds. Naturally, Fang Mingquan had no way of knowing that, so he simply wrote an article, "You are my uncrowned king," to indicate the Dollar was his only king and champion forever no matter which place he ended up having. Getting no answer from Fang Mingquan, people were still curious, but there was no one who knew the reason why Dollar did not show up no matter how many analyses there were. Until the end of the contest, Dollar still did not make his appearance. He was considered lost by forfeit in all his matches and ranked number 10 in the end. But no one doubted the strength of Dollar. At least he would not be number 10. And the champion was highly predictable. Lin Feng still allowed all his opponents to perform wonderfully before defeating them. It was the same in every match of his. The focus of the ranking rounds was not the ranking. There was not even much discussion on who the champion would be. The hottest debate was if Dollar had come, who would the champion be? In an interview with Lin Feng, a female reporter asked him, "Did Dollar choose not to come because he fears you?" Lin Feng replied casually, "Just like I will never be afraid of any opponent, neither will he." He then ignored all other interviews. Unable to reach Lin Feng, reporters then turned to chase his buddy Tang Zhenliu. This made Tang really depressed. He was the runner-up this year, which was the best ranking he had so far, and no one cared about that. They might congratulate him on that in the beginning, which was always followed by questions about Dollar. Tang Zhenliu, if Dollar were in the matches, who do you think would be the champion? Dollar or Lin Feng? Tang Zhenliu, why do you think Dollar was absent? Dollar and Lin Feng, who would be more likely to win? Do Dollar and Lin Feng know each other? Are you and Dollar friends? All kinds of questions made Tang dizzy, and he ended up hiding at home so that the journalists could not besiege him. The Skynet was also flooded with posts discussing these questions. Some were praising Dollar and some criticizing. The debates lasted for about a month after the contest was over. It took Han Sen and the youths more than half a month to reach Glory Shelter. The youths told Han Sen it would take a month, which was an estimate according to their own speed, considering they had to bypass large groups of creatures. With Han Sen on the team, they did not need to take detours anymore, as the archer could clear the path. As long as the creatures were not in too large a group, Han Sen could always keep them at least 30 feet away, making the youths realize the benefits a great archer could bring. Because of the performance of Han Sen, some of them had changed their focus to archery. After Han Sen reached Glory Shelter, he found that he could not claim the reward for the chosen there and had to claim it at the Sacred Steel and Steel Armor Shelter where he registered in the contest. That will be all for now. I hope you find this story interesting. Leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss the next part of this story. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.